Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's press conference. This is a press conference for the new quarantine K through 12 quarantine guidelines. I will now kick it over to Sedgwick County Chairman Meissner.
Thank you, Hakeem. And good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this kind of a special announcement today. I want to recognize some of the officials. My fellow commissioners are on. There's David Dennis, and I believe the other three are joined by Lacey Cruz and Jim Howell and Sarah Lopez. Okay. Also, I want to announce, and when I say your name, maybe wave at the camera so the media will know who you are. Dr. Menz is with us. He'll be speaking in a few minutes. Alicia Thompson from Wichita School District, Public Schools, and Janet Eaton from Wichita Catholic Diocese. We have Chad Higgins, Superintendent Mays Public Schools, Brett White from Andover Public Schools, Chris Cooper from Clearwater Public Schools, and Mindy Bruce from Renwick Public Schools. So you all know that this COVID has obviously had a huge impact on our community. And with that, we as the County Commission and Dr. Menz and others who know it, realizing that students do better when they're in the classrooms in a constructive learning environment, trusted teachers, educators, their fellow friends. With that, I'm pleased to have Dr. Gerald Menz. He's our local health officer, and a number of these representatives who just waved at you from our K-12 school districts to announce some new guidelines aimed at keeping the students safe in classroom while continuing to ensure their health and safety. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Dr. Gerald Menz for some comments and announcements.
Thank you, Commissioner Meissner. As Mr. Meissner just mentioned, I serve as Sedgwick County's local health officer in addition to my role at the KU School of Medicine campus in Wichita as the dean here. After continued research and conversation with school officials about health and safety measures, I believe it is time to modify our quarantine guidelines in the schools. Previously, if a student was considered a close contact of a COVID-19 positive person, their only option was to quarantine using KDHE and Sedgwick County guidelines. Beginning today, K through 12 school districts now have the option to use new COVID-19 quarantine guidance, which will continue to ensure students' health and safety while also allowing them to remain in classrooms. I've determined that there are different levels of close contact in schools based on student activity. If a student comes in close contact with a COVID-19 positive person while in classroom where there is social distancing and mask wearing, that is now considered a low-risk close contact. Students who are low-risk close contacts will have the option to remain in the classroom without being required to quarantine in the home, although that is an option if they wish at this time also. If a student comes in close contact with a COVID-19 person while not wearing a mask or while eating or drinking without social distancing or participating in physical activity, that is considered a high-risk close contact. Students who are high-risk close contacts must follow KDHE and Sedgwick County quarantine guidance and participate in remote learning. This modified guidance is imperative to keep our kids in school and ensure their safety and health from COVID-19. While this guidance has been relaxed, it has been done so after careful thought and examination of our current school systems. Today's decision is not intended to show our community that we can relax in general from proper safety measures. Rather, we must continue to wear a mask, practice social distancing from one another, and wash our hands often. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Menz. And also somebody that's been very helpful working through this is fellow Commissioner David Dennis, and he would like to say a couple of remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I am absolutely thrilled that we've been able to work through this together with the school districts, with our health officer, with our health department, because this allows us to continue keeping kids safe while at the same time allowing them to stay in the classrooms. This has been a topic of concern for me from the beginning. I've been very vocal about the importance of getting people back to work and getting kids back in school. And I know every one of our commissioners shares that same desire. We've heard from the school officials, we've reviewed the data, and today's announcement is the culmination of those efforts. Pete, I'll let you wrap it up, but I'm very happy to be able to work with our school districts and everyone involved. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Dennis. So thank you, Dr. Menz, for this modification and to continue to analyze our community safety on a daily and a weekly basis. And I'd also like to remind everyone that we're working to vaccinate the residents as quickly as possible. If you notice this week, earlier this week, we opened appointments for residents aged 75 and older. And today, 5 days later, we've opened it at 70 and older. So there's a lot of appointments available for next week. If you wanted to get online, sedgwickcounty.org, and it's an easy step to get an appointment. I've personally been impressed that we've been able to open up these appointments rather rapidly. To put it all in perspective, late last month, that's late January, we began phase 2 with residents 90 and older. 1 day later, we expanded to residents of age 83 and older. And then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks ago, we further expanded availability to residents 80 and older. And then we went to 75, like I said, last week, and then we're at 70 today. So we will continue to expand the vaccine availability as we receive more vaccines from the state. So again, you can get an appointment at sedgwickcounty.org, or you can call the phone number 660-1029. And now I'll pass it back to Hakeem, and he can address the media. And if there's any questions for us or for some of the superintendents that have joined us. And I just want to thank the superintendents. They've been remarkable for us to work with. They provided, most of them that have had information for the previous semester, the fall semester, as they battled through it. And so they were able to provide us some really accurate and clean data to analyze what and allow Dr. Menz to review and analyze, and him and the health officials can come up with this alternative. So with that, Hakeem, I'll send it to you.
Thanks so much, Chairman. And as the Chairman just mentioned, residents can now schedule their appointments online at sedgwickcounty.org, or they can also schedule by calling 316-660-1029. As of today, those appointments are now open to those age 70 and older. In addition to that, thank you to our media partners for being here today. We are now going to move into the question and answering portion of this. Dr. Menz will have to get off. He's a very busy man, so he has another appointment he has to get to. But as the Chairman mentioned, there are a number of superintendents as well as county health folks on the call today to answer your questions. So with that, we will kind of do a round table. We'll start off with the Wichita Eagle first. Diane. You're on mute, Diane. You're on mute.
Yes, actually, before Dr. Menz, before you leave, if you could just tell us what's changed here. Is there something that has changed in the course of the pandemic here that has made it, or is it? What was the reason for the change, I guess?
I'd say two big reasons. One is, as you know, the caseload in our community has gone down significantly since November, which is a very good sign. That I think it implies that our community is complying with our orders for the most part. I know that not everybody's on board yet, for the most part. The second thing, there's been good studies published in the last couple of weeks that have been published in the MMWR that show that school systems that enforce the requirements that we've already articulated, that they can keep the number of infections in the schools very low. And then indeed, most of the infections they're seeing are occurring outside the school, not in the school. So I think that's reassuring. It's a very good study done. And I think as long as our schools can do what we've recommended in terms of continuing the social distancing, the mask, cohorting, those kind of things, I think we should keep the load pretty low there. And therefore, I think it's fair not to make people stay out unless they have violated from those recommendations. I need to have another meeting scheduled this time, so I apologize. I'm going to have to leave at this point.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mintz. John, any other questions that you have?
Yeah, I had one other question, and I'll throw it out to, I don't know who answers this, but what's the real world effect of this? It was my understanding that schools could pretty much do what they wanted anyway. So how, what's the, what role does the county play in this?
Diane, I'll mention something real quick, and then the superintendents can address themselves. A lot of the school districts were following the CDC and guidelines and Sedgwick County guidelines, and basically it was all students were considered a type of risk. And what this is the high risk, as described earlier, still has those guidelines, which the school districts are all going to, the quarantining. But it's the new category is low risk that Sedgwick County has agreed to adopt, and this low risk allows the students to remain in school. But with that, I'll let it go. I see some heads nodding. Brett White, Brett, you want to comment, or anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. Brett White, Superintendent, Andover Public Schools, and as Chairman said, we have students and staff who reside in both Butler and Sedgwick County. So for us, this is really a game changer as far as creating more consistency between the two counties as it relates to the low risk quarantine. So this is really going to help our staff. And when there's differences, it just creates another layer of complexity for staff to work through. So this is much appreciated. I would echo as far as the collaborative nature, and we really appreciate the county and staff and the commissioners really listening to our concerns and taking those into consideration. But for us, with students in both Sedgwick and Butler counties, this is really an important step.
Yeah, if I could add to what Brett said, this is Chad Higgins. I'm a superintendent at Mays. This is something we've really been looking at and advocating for since late fall. I think when we started the school year, none of us really knew how successful we would be in schools as far as compliance with students and staff wearing masks. Most of our problems come from outside, spouses or parents who create infection. It's not being spread in schools. This year in Mays, we've had approximately 7,000 cases of quarantines or isolations, and only a handful, fewer than 30, can we attribute to spread within schools. And in almost every case, that's athletics in what's considered a high risk, or a lunchroom when masks are being worn. So we're trying to use the data that we've collected to allow us to keep our kids and our staff in school as we start bringing more of them back in later this spring.
Okay. So if I understand this correctly, if they're a low risk contact, then they just keep going to school. If they're a high risk contact, then they would have to go home for some period of time. What is that period of time?
Tim, or
really, it just reverts back to the current or recent guidelines. Still the monitored for so many days, and our modified guidelines that were adopted before the winter break allow for some testing, PCR testing after on that 6th day, and then they can return on the 8th day, rather than the original 14-day quarantine for a close contact. So it's already been modified, but even then, we were still sending far too many students home for far too long with no symptoms when they're wearing their masks as they're supposed to be.
I would add to that. This is Janet Eaton with the Catholic Diocese of Wichita. Just that low risk, it is really now a parent choice that the parents will be given, and we will invite their children to stay in the school. But a parent that really feels like their child should be at home, then they would be quarantined by the regulations that we're following. The high risk would definitely be quarantined.
Does this apply to teachers too?
No.
Okay.
all right. Thank you, Diane. Let's move on. Cake, are you on? Do we have a representative from Cake News? Okay. KSN, are you there?
I am here. This is Crystal. I just had my one question answered. This does not apply to teachers. Can anyone elaborate on maybe why that is?
I'll comment. Dr. Min's referenced a study in Wisconsin. Most of the data that we've seen shows that the transmission rate among children is lower than it is among adults. And so that's why we feel that making this change apply to children is probably a safe approach.
And one
I
quick,
might add real quick to Dion's comment earlier, as far as schools having some greater flexibility beyond regulations. I think if a school district or school board decided to apply these same guidelines to staff, specifically teachers, I think we would have that ability. But again, we've to this point operated cautiously, going against KSDE, Sedgwick County guidelines.
and one quick question while we're on the topic of moving in a progressive way here in Sedgwick County. The teachers union says the county is already prepared for vaccinations for educators, teachers. Any updates on when we could expect that, or are you all just still waiting on that supply from the state?
This is Tim. I can comment that we have worked with USD 259. They will begin vaccinating their staff over the age of 70, and we're in the process of making contact with the other districts in the community so that we can transfer vaccines to them as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Crystal. Let's move on. Wichita Business Journal. Are you there?
Yeah, Tim, you just said 70 and over. When does that start? And then what about, that's a small amount of staff members. What are we talking about for most of the teachers who are in with students every day? When can we expect to see those vaccinations begin?
Well, we've lowered to 70 across the board today, so we're applying that to teachers as well. And as we work, once we get through the age 65 and older, then we're going to start looking at the rest of phase 2, according to the KDHE guidelines, that includes high contact occupations. And so teachers will certainly be in that group. So right now, I can't give you a specific date. I can just tell you it's on the horizon and we're working towards it.
Could Dr. Thompson or another talk preparations? I have heard from a building principal that you all are ready to go. You're just waiting on the vaccines. Is that correct? Talk about that a little bit.
That is correct. We are ready to proceed. Once we have been given direction, specific direction from the county, and we will follow those directives here. We have stood up a center where we're able to vaccine our staff as vaccines become available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Okay, KWCH, Anna, I see you're on. Questions?
Yes, I am. Just one clarification. So if teachers are 70 and older, can they trust to get the shot now, or do they need to wait for the district for that?
Either approach would be all right. They can certainly schedule themselves, or they can go through the process that their schools are doing.
Okay, and then just on some numbers, at the height of some of our COVID cases, how many students were you seeing at home quarantined?
I think some of the superintendents could respond to that. We were kind of surprised at how many. They were giving us numbers before they were sending home 10s and 15s at a time, and then that same 15 would come back to class and 10 days later and not have any symptoms. So they may have, if you could quickly, if you had on the front of your information, if you could say how many kids in your districts were on quarantine for a while.
I would say in our district, the last 6 weeks, we've probably averaged a couple of hundred per week. That's declining certainly as community cases go down, but In October and November, the number was twice that.
And that was Superintendent Higgins from Mays. So Superintendent, right before you actually give your answer, could you just go ahead and say the district that you're with so that the news
Sorry,
media...
I haven't done a press conference in a while.
Okay.
This is Chris Cooper, Superintendent at Clearwater Schools. We've been as high as 12% at certain times, but it's sometimes spotty. We've had a couple of grade levels that were pushing 50% for a week or so. And again, just over a few positives, but the close contacts would send a lot of students home. We've been on site all year, but we have had high numbers of quarantines. And I should say all year till today. We're remote learning today because of weather, not COVID.
I might, Janet, you might say what you think, because Superintendent at Catholic Schools, Janet also has a number of schools in other counties. So she brought a perspective of a lot of school history to our committee as we were digesting all this.
Yes, thank you. So I think what we have discovered from August till now is in August, we really didn't know what we were up against, and we didn't know honestly how safe our schools could be. And at the end of the day, for many, many situations, the school is the safest spot for an individual to be. And so as we began to follow Johnson County, Leavenworth County, Crawford County, several of the states around us, this is exactly what we saw them doing and being successful at. And so I know when it was just asked a little bit ago about our numbers, just recently in the diocese, we had 31 positives across 9,000 kids, and we had 231 quarantines. And what we were finding is the quarantines, they're just out of school. They feel good. They're not coming positive. They're just out of school. And that's very challenging for parents, for educators as well.
This is Brett White in Andover. We had 129 last week. And again, that number has gone down from really the schools just kind of reflect the community data. So those numbers are down. And I think one of the keys that we've all seen as superintendents is this is only possible today because our students and our staff are very compliant with wearing the mask and really taking the mitigation strategies very seriously. So I don't think something like this would be possible without lots of help from our staff and students and families. So, but we're really excited about the change, and we think those numbers will continue to decrease over time.
This is Mindy Bruce, superintendent in the Renwick school system. We've been in school since August, 5 days a week, all of our students. We really noticed after watching carefully on quarantines, we were having to quarantine a lot of kids because of positives in their home. And then we were quarantining a lot of kids because of close contacts at school, but none of the close contacts were coming back positive. So we have went from, our high was around 12% out, and now we are down to maybe 2% out. So our numbers have shown that what we're doing is working with our kids. And I think Janet said this just a minute ago, the safest place for kids is school, because we are doing all the right things to keep them here. So we really appreciate the commissioners at least looking at this step to start to move forward and make changes from the data that we're showing with kids in school.
Commissioner or Superintendent Thompson, did you want to add in?
Sure. We also will mirror the rest of the school districts that have spoken. We had low student quarantines and positive cases, low positivity rate of our students inside of our buildings. So we would mirror the rest of my colleagues.
Any other superintendents that we maybe have missed? Okay. All right, let's double back here for a second. We've got Bree Smith with Cake. Bree, are you there? This is now question and answer session. Okay, we'll move on. We've got KMUW. Nadia, are you there?
I am, thank you. Just to clarify, Mr. Kaufman, can you repeat again, teachers and staff who are 70 and older can get the vaccine through their schools or through the district?
We are in the process of working with the school districts, and we've started with USD 259, and they will have vaccine available that they can use for their staff that are age 70 and older, or anyone can go through the registration process that we have online and schedule an appointment for themselves. We're also in the process of connecting with all the other school districts in the county so that we can work with them to get vaccine for them so that they can vaccinate their staff on site if that's more convenient.
Okay. And that'll be the same moving forward as teachers become eligible?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. No, I think that was it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nadia. Okay, do we have any other questions, Diane? I see your mic is off. We've got about 30 minutes. We're not going to take up this entire time if we don't need to. Did you have any other questions, Diane?
Yeah. What are teachers? What is the quarantine picture for teachers right now if they are a close contact of any variety? Is it the same 6 days out, 8-day thing that we talked about earlier that they have to go through?
It is.
Oh, okay. And second, I mean, what percentage of teachers is over 70?
I don't know.
I mean,
I'd
are
say
there any teachers over 70?
Very small percentage, but we do have, I suspect we all have bus drivers who are 70 or older, and that's also a pretty high risk, difficult to fill position. That'll be critical to get vaccinated.
Okay. All righty, that's it for me.
Sorry, this is Chad Higgins at Mays.
Yeah, no, I can tell.
Superintendent.
Thanks, Chad.
Okay. Seeing no more questions, Chairman, did you have any final remarks before I close?
Well, I can't thank, this is another example of how our Wichita and Sedgwick County community works together with various industries, in this case, the industry of the school business. And I just want to thank them. Their initial wish was to have something done that they could implement by like March 1st, and we've actually accelerated that. And again, this is basically for Diane and the other media. The difference is high risk is still the rules that we haven't touched the rules. Those are still in quarantine and follow the guidelines. The difference of today is there's high risk, and then the low risk is the new stuff. So the low risk allows these kids to, I know they all have their sense, they're going to monitor the low risk students anyway. When they come in, they'll probably monitor for temperature and whatever procedures they want to do internally to assure that these low risk, they're watched for this 5-10 days while they're determining if they need to be in permanent quarantine or not. So I think it's a well thought out plan. I want to thank our friends in Johnson County who during this pandemic, we've been working with Johnson County a lot because of the other big population center. And so I want to thank them. And we do have 10 school districts in Sedgwick County, and then we have a couple of school districts like Brett's that cross county lines. So we're a significant volume of school districts and students in our state. So my thanks to everybody on this. And so with that.
Thank you, Chairman. And as the Chairman just mentioned, thank you to our superintendents for taking your time out of your day to join us and answer some questions and the continued partnership with Sedgwick County. To the general public, thank you for watching as well as Dr. Mins. For our media partners, communication continues to come out from the county and from the school district. We ask that you help us communicate with the public these important updates and details. Again, thank you all for joining us and participating. This is all the time we have for today. Today's press conference is being recorded and will be posted on Sedgwick County's Facebook pages as well as the website. Again, thank you all and have a great day and a great